What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so before I go forward, I want to give a shout out to the brother Apex Jones. Apex Jones hacked on X/Twitter. This is where I saw this clip additionally of Shaq saying what he said. So I want to give credit where credit's due. You subscribe to X/Twitter. Please subscribe to the brother Apex Jones hacked on X/Twitter. So I don't know what this is where a lot of these NBA players, despite great individual success in the sport, team success as far as championships, fame, fortune, generational wealth, which they can pass on obviously to their children and their children along, provided they don't fuck it up. Um, they seem to have this. A lot of these guys today seem to have this chip on their shoulder, and at the end of the day, I don't know. Maybe that's part of what made them great is that they always needed to be in a mind frame where they are in a you know a persecution complex. That maybe that's what drives them. I don't know. Um, but anyway, Shaquille O'Neal was doing an interview on, I believe it's NBA radio, ESPN and NBA radio. And from what I could gather, I think they were talking about the the fact that LeBron was never embraced by Lakers fans, right? And that's what it seems like that guy was telling him or asking him about. And then Shaq went on to say that, well, look, I was never embraced by Laker fans the way that they never loved me the way they loved Kobe, right? So here it is for you.
Obviously they loved you and Kobe. Why do you think it is that the fan base just never connected with him? And what do you think about the way that they did treat him?
Well, they didn't love me. They loved Kobe. They didn't
Yeah.
love me. Listen, this is what we call BOB, brother, the business of basketball. When you're like me, when I'm in charge, I'm a difficult man to deal with. Everything has to be done my way. And sometimes people don't agree with that. And, so when they get you up out of there, it's like, so I can kind of understand both sides.
This has been my problem with Shaq at times, right? On the one hand, Shaq can be Kobe's biggest advocate as far as preserving his legacy, making sure that his name stays in the conversation among the all-time elite greats, right? Making sure he's in the GOAT conversation. But then there's also times when although he tries to mask it, there seems to be some resentment still lingering, right? And then he'll say something that's intended to uplift LeBron, but you could interpret it as a subtle diss at Kobe, though, there's obviously plausible deniability behind that. First of all, no. Kobe was not, from what I could tell, a popular guy either as far as guys getting along with him who played with him. He was a hard guy to get along with. Same thing with Michael Jordan. So I don't buy that as the reason why, where fans love Kobe. It's just that Kobe played there forever, for 20 years. And, he played there. Fans watched him grow up from a 17-year-old, gangly slightly nerdy, slightly, media awkward guy to the NBA legend he became. We literally watched Kobe grow up as in purple and gold. I mean, you can't compete with that. Not just the fact that we saw him do individually brilliant things, but also he won 5 NBA championships and he won 2 back to back. And what many of us consider the last legit repeat titles, and not counting that super team nonsense that LeBron and Kevin Durant engaged in, uh, that endured him to Lakers fans. But they appreciate Shaq. I don't buy that at all. They appreciate Shaq, but the thing is, Will Chamberlain once said this: nobody roots for Goliath. Centers generally are not as beloved as guards and forwards because the average person, they just can't identify with a giant. They can identify with someone who's 7 feet plus tall. And, the way that the NBA court looks, players who are 6'6" and under, by comparison, they look like they're under 6 feet tall. So to the perception of the eye, they look like they're about our height, even though they're a little bit taller. But it's still, attainable things. Like, we can't really. I'll say this too. Watching a guard or perimeter player practice his game or work on his game is just aesthetically more appealing to watch. The jab step, step back threes, working on his foot, working on his balance, or working on, his footwork out there on the court, practicing moves and working on his hezzy, all these different things. They look just more appealing than watching a center working the post. I appreciate it. We all do. But it's just something about it, man. Kareem was never beloved like Magic was. Wilt was never really beloved by the media. I think the last center that was beloved by the media, honestly, was George Mikan. That's off the top of my head, that's the last guy that was beloved by the media. So you gotta go back 70 plus fucking years. But I think it's a lie to say that fans don't appreciate Shaq or didn't love him, because that's not true at all. And I got facts to back this up. So we're talking about popularity here, right? Shaq in his prime, and I would say his prime was damn near since he came in the league into the mid 2000s, right? Shaq's jerseys were almost always amongst the best-selling jerseys for fans. In 2005, and this is when Shaq was in his decline period with Miami, Shaq's Miami jersey was the number one selling jersey that year in 2005. But here's the meat of the coconut here. All-star voting. His rookie year, Shaq was fourth in All-Star voting behind Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Charles Barkley. For reference, the Bulls were in the midst of their third consecutive title. Barkley would wind up being MVP that year. 1994, Shaq was second in All-Star voting behind reigning MVP Charles Barkley. In 1995, Shaq was second in All-Star voting behind Grant Hill, the rookie sensation for the Detroit Pistons. In 1996, Shaq was third in All-Star voting behind Grant Hill and Michael Jordan. In 1997, Shaq was seventh behind Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, Grant Hill, Scottie Pippen, uh, Akeem Olajuwon, uh, Patrick Ewing, and what's his name? Uh, Allen Iverson. And that's the year that Shaq missed like almost 30 games due to injury, over 30 games due to injury. 1998, Shaq was fourth in All Star voting behind Michael Jordan, Grant Hill, and Karl Malone. And he finished ahead of Kobe Bryant in All Star voting. In 1999, because of the strike shortened year, there was no All Star game. In 2000, Shaq was fourth behind Vince Carter, Alonzo Mourning, and Allen Iverson, and finished ahead of Kobe Bryant in All Star voting. In 2001, Shaq was second in All Star voting, only to Vince Carter, and finished ahead of Kobe Bryant in All Star voting. In 2002, Shaq was second, finishing only behind Vince Carter and ahead of Kobe Bryant in All Star voting. In 2003, Shaq was injury plagued that year. I think he only played in 56 games that year. So he finished 11th behind Kobe, Vince, McGrady, Yao, uh, Tim Duncan, Ben Wallace, Iverson, Michael Jordan in his swan song, Kevin Garnett, and Dirk Nowitzki. But in 2004, he was eighth in All-Star voting. Now this is Shaq in the downside of his career. So he's still top 10 in MVP, All-Star voting behind Vince Carter, Ben Wallace, Iverson, Kobe, Garnett, Tim Duncan, and Yao. In 2005, the year that he's number one in jersey sales, he shoots back up to second in All-Star voting behind only Yao, who's obviously getting a lot of votes from China. As a matter of fact, he's one of only two guys to get 2 million All-Star votes. But nobody loves him? He's in Miami now. He's getting more votes than Wade, ladies and gentlemen. 2006. He finishes with over 2 million votes alongside Yao, Kobe, LeBron. They're all, and Iverson. They all get over 2 million votes that year. In 2007, he's seventh in All-Star voting. 2008 was the first time that he drew less than 1 million All-Star votes. But in 2009 with the Toronto Raptors, or with the Phoenix Suns, he re-enters the top 10 in All-Star voting and gets 1.8 million votes and third in voting behind only Dwight Howard and Yao Ming in centers. So he's consistently been in his career one of the most popular players in the NBA. So what he's saying has no basis in reality. It's just perception. Amongst the Laker fan base, no, you're not going to be as beloved because you played 8 years versus Kobe's 20. But overall, Shaq was probably one of the most beloved centers ever. So, no, the guy's been in movies. He put out music, which, he's always been a personality that's been prominently displayed in the entertainment business. I don't know what he's talking about. You're comparing yourself to a Laker, arguably the greatest Laker legend of all time. Come on, man. What are you doing here? But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think. Too Raw for TV.